As she stood at the edge of the roof, the city spread out before her like a canvas of twinkling lights, each one a whispered secret, a hidden truth waiting to be unearthed. The wind rustled her hair, carrying the sweet scent of blooming flowers and the distant hum of the highway. Lena's toes curled over the edge, her heels hanging precariously in the void, as if the universe itself was pulling her towards the abyss. She felt the familiar thrum of the void's call, a siren's song that had haunted her since childhood. It was a sound that echoed through her dreams, a melody that resonated deep within her bones, beckoning her towards the darkness. It was a call she couldn't resist, a gravitational force that pulled her ever closer to the edge. Lena's eyes fluttered closed, and the world around her melted away, leaving only the sound of her own heartbeat, a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the hum of the city below. She felt the weight of her existence, the accumulation of every joy and sorrow, every triumph and failure, and the crushing burden of her own insignificance. In that moment, the void seemed to whisper secrets in her ear, its voice a gentle breeze that rustled the leaves of her soul. It promised her freedom from the prison of her own skin, from the shackles of her mortal coil. It promised her transcendence, a fusion with the infinite, a dissolution into the great unknown. As the void's whispers grew louder, Lena's eyelids fluttered open, and she gazed out into the abyss, her pupils dilating to drink in the darkness. The city lights blurred, becoming a kaleidoscope of colors that swirled around her like a maelstrom. The sounds of the city receded, replaced by the eerie silence of the void. Her fingers, tingling with anticipation, released their grip on the rooftop's edge, and she felt herself teetering on the precipice, poised between the solidity of the world and the endless expanse of the unknown. The wind whipped her hair into a frenzy, a maddening dance that echoed the turmoil within her own mind. The call of the void grew louder still, a deafening crescendo that drowned out the whispers of reason, of sanity, of life itself. Lena's heart pounded in time with the void's rhythm, her very essence resonating with the abyssal frequency. She felt herself becoming one with the darkness, her boundaries dissolving, her soul unraveling like a thread pulled from a tapestry. And yet, even as she stood on the cusp of surrender, a part of her resisted, clinging to the fragile thread of reality. A spark of defiance flickered within her, a flame that refused to be extinguished. It was a spark that burned with a fire that threatened to consume her, to reduce her to naught but ashes and embers. The spark within her guttered, flickering wildly as the void's call threatened to snuff it out. But it refused to die, fueled by a deep-seated determination to resist the abyss's pull. Lena's eyes, once empty pools of surrender, now flashed with a fierce inner light, a beacon of defiance in the face of the void's overwhelming power. With a sudden jolt, she pulled back from the edge, her fingers scrabbling for purchase on the rooftop's rough surface. The city lights seemed to snap back into focus, their twinkling beauty now a cruel mockery of the abyssal darkness that lurked beneath. The wind died, leaving an oppressive stillness in its wake. Lena's chest heaved, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she stumbled backwards, her eyes fixed on the rooftop's edge as if it was a precipice that threatened to swallow her whole. The void's call still echoed within her, a haunting melody that refused to fade. As she stumbled away from the edge, her gaze fell upon the figure standing in the shadows, watching her with an unblinking intensity. The figure's face was a death's mask, a pale oval with eyes that burned like hot coals. Its presence seemed to sear the air around it, leaving a scorched earth of silence in its wake. Lena's heart stuttered, her mind reeling as she tried to comprehend the figure's presence. Was it a guardian of the void, a sentinel tasked with ushering her into the abyss? Or was it something more, a harbinger of a darkness that lurked beyond the veil of reality? The figure didn't move, didn't speak. It simply stood, a monolith of menace, as the void's call continued to resonate within Lena's very being. The figure's gaze never wavered, its eyes burning with an intensity that seemed to pierce the very fabric of Lena's soul. She felt herself being drawn towards it, as if by an unseen force, her feet moving of their own accord across the rooftop's rough surface. As she approached, the figure's presence seemed to swell, its darkness spreading like a stain, suffusing the air with an unholy energy. The city lights dimmed, as if the very stars themselves were being extinguished by the figure's malevolent power. Lena's heart raced, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps as she stopped inches from the figure's face. Its features remained impassive, a death mask of pale skin and burning coals. The void's call still echoed within her, but now it was tempered by a growing sense of dread. The figure's mouth, a thin, lipless slit, opened, and a voice like the rustling of dry leaves spoke a single, whispered word. "Remember." Lena's mind recoiled, her thoughts fragmented by the figure's words. Memories, long buried, began to surface, shards of a past she'd long forgotten. Images flashed before her eyes. A childhood of whispers and shadowy corridors, of doors that opened onto secrets and silences that screamed with unspoken truths. The figure's eyes flared, their burning intensity piercing the veil of Lena's memories. She saw herself as a child, standing at the edge of a great precipice, with the void's call echoing through her tiny heart. She saw herself looking up, into the face of the figure, its burning eyes fixed upon her like a beacon of damnation. The memories came flooding back, a torrent of recalled terror that threatened to consume Lena whole. She stumbled backwards, her eyes fixed on the figure, as the rooftop around her began to blur and distort. The figure's gaze never wavered, its burning eyes holding hers with an unnatural intensity. The whispered word "remember" seemed to echo through her mind, a mantra of revelation that stripped away the veils of forgetfulness. Lena's thoughts were a maelstrom of conflicting emotions, as the past and present collided in a cacophony of fear and confusion. She saw herself as a child, trapped in a labyrinth of corridors and dark chambers, with the figure always lurking, always watching. The figure's presence seemed to grow, its darkness spreading like a stain, as Lena's memories coalesced into a single, terrible truth. She remembered the pact she had made, the promise she had spoken in the darkness, a vow that had bound her to the void's call. The rooftop around her seemed to dissolve, leaving only the figure, its eyes blazing with an otherworldly power. Lena's screams were drowned out by the cacophony of her own memories, as the figure's presence engulfed her, pulling her back, into the abyss. The figure's darkness enveloped her, a living shroud that wrapped around her like a suffocating embrace. Lena's screams were silenced, her voice lost in the void's abyssal depths. Her memories, now freed from their prison, swirled around her like a maelstrom, a whirlpool of terror that pulled her down. In the darkness, Lena's consciousness fragmented, shattered into 1,000 shards of madness. She saw herself as a child, standing at the edge of the precipice, with the void's call echoing through her tiny heart. She saw herself as an adult, standing on the rooftop, with the figure's burning eyes fixed upon her. The memories merged, overlapping like shattered fragments of a broken mirror. Lena's sense of self dissolved, her identity shattered by the crushing weight of her own forgotten past. In the darkness, the figure's presence loomed, a monstrous shadow that had haunted her since birth. Its burning eyes flared, casting an eerie glow over the abyssal landscape. The void's call still echoed, a siren's song that beckoned her towards the precipice, where the darkness waited, open-armed,